Welcome everyone to Get With the Programming. I'm chasing it with Bill Grundler, and we're skipping the fanfare, the cute sound bites, and any sponsor stuff for today because we have a big change in the CrossFit Games landscape, the CrossFit landscape, and with the firing of Dave Castro, and we wanted to hop on. We wanted to give ourselves a couple days to kind of collect our thoughts and our feelings about Dave itself and kind of what's going on and what the future may look like. And me and Bill are hopping on here to really just talk about Dave, the maybe our personal relationships with him, what we feel, how we feel about Dave, the legacy at which he led, and maybe what the future looks like. We're not here to speculate or comment on why things happened. That's reserved for another show. That's
Well, we don't know why anyway. I
exactly.
mean, it would all be speculation and but
It's yeah, it's been a crazy 48 hours, a little bit over.
yeah, man. I have never if you talk about even going back to like all the stuff that went down like with Greg, this feels way bigger than that, which is crazy.
Yeah, it was wild.
Yeah. I'm still
And
picking up weird pieces and trying to figure it out.
it's I try to write something down as far as, we don't have anything planned. We're going to be here for an hour with you guys as we do this. Obviously, we're recording this live to YouTube, and we're going to put this on our normal podcast platform. So if you guys want to jump in while you're watching and comment, some of you guys are already here. We'll throw some things up, say hi to y'all. Listen to what y'all have to say, your feelings about what happening. If you guys have questions for us and what we feel like the future may hold, if we can put you at ease or at least console you or, listen to you rant about your feeling of Dave. I think it's, if you asked 1,000 people their opinion on Dave, you would get 1,000 different answers.
That's a totally valid response.
And
oh my God.
It'll range for like, I would die for Dave to I hope Dave dies. It's so, I've never met someone more polarizing than Dave Castro in all kinds of ways, because it really is your personal relationship, whether you knew him or not, right? Whether you just followed him on Instagram, you watched his documentaries, you saw him live in person, or you actually know who he is. Like, everyone's relationship across, like, me and your relationship with Dave is completely different. How we perceive Dave is completely different. If you listen to, Talking Elite Fitness, Tommy and Sean just did a podcast. I think they released it yesterday, and they talked an hour and a half at length, and they have a completely different relationship with Dave Castro. And I think it's really unfair to put him in a box, because it really is your personal relationship, perspective, and experience with Dave that really dictates how you see him.
Yeah, and I think that, when you say the word polarizing, I think that's a unique way to categorize it, because I would say that if you're going to talk about a polarizing personality within our space, that would have been Greg Glassman. I mean, for all of the amazing things that he created, with all the stuff that went down with the comments and the, things that happened in the HQ, whether they happened or didn't happen or whatever, that's not what I'm talking about. But those comments and conversations were extremely polarizing of some heavy duty emotional stuff. The weird stuff that's polarizing with Dave is, I mean, and it comes down to, like, I think honestly, it's polarizing, yes, but on a weird level. It's polarizing as, is he a douchebag or not? Like, that's the polarizing part. You know what I mean? Because
it depends on who you are.
100%, 100%. Like, I would never say that he's a douchebag.
No, neither would I.
I can see if you don't know him, and then you see these weird things that I'm not gonna say weird. You see these things that he chooses to put up there. I mean, what's great about Dave is that he would always, for the sake of conversation, throw things out and then just let the ducks go crazy on that piece of bread to see what it is. I mean, whether it was his open hints, or his hunting stuff, or his gun stuff, or this car thing, or he dropped a picture with, like, some music celebrity or whatever. I mean, to be a douchebag is to be kind of like an asshole to you. And
Yeah.
he's never really been a straight up asshole to anybody that says that he's a douchebag. That's what's so funny. They're just like,
Yeah.
that guy's weird. I don't like his attitude. He's got an attitude. Who does he
Yeah.
think he is?
Maybe
But
the only one that generally thinks that way. Well, I don't want to put words in other people's mouths, but yeah, you're right, because like I know exactly. So if you're in the camp of I hate Dave Castro, like I totally see why you think that. Or you're like Dave Castro's a douchebag. Like I totally get that, and I can list 100 different times where he has had douchebag moments
yeah, yeah,
on purpose. And you're right. A lot of the times people's only interaction with Dave isn't even an interaction. It's a one-way street of Dave doing something and just letting people react to it.
totally.
And sometimes he would do things on purpose to watch people's reaction to get a true sense of people. And he would do that with social media. He would do that at the CrossFit Games, maybe when he's just talking to a group of people, whether it's judges, media, staff, whatever. He would do that to staff members. You know, like he would do certain things to truly like get a bead on who you are and where you're at.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that kind of stuff was very tactical from Dave, and I think that's some of his military background. He's like, listen, you guys are all
Definitely his
nice to me.
military background.
You guys are all nice to me. And, or you're all saying yes and you're nodding your head and you said you got my back. And then it's like, I'm going to do something totally off the wall. And then I'm going to see who you truly are. And I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of the times he just did that. And a lot of the times he just liked to stir things up.
Well, and when you come from a service background or a public safety background, and you're in these crews, you're in these tight teams, you're kind of brought up with some tough skin. And what you do in those, whether it was your sports team or your fire crew or your military team or whatever, is you constantly mess with each other. Like, and that's part of the humor. That's part of what you do. And so there's a lot of that sort of egging on that I think is natural and set up. But then at the same time, when that's been your career, like once things get put into action, there's not a whole lot of question. And one of the things that, like, whether you liked it or didn't like it, that I liked about Dave, and it wasn't always that it worked in my personal best interest or whatever, but like when he would go to take an action, he took the action. He didn't sit there and go like, okay, everybody, let's everyone tell me about your feelings. Does it make you feel good? How
Yeah.
does everyone think over here? How does everyone think over here? He's like, okay, he was told, I mean, because the guy's a soldier. So he's told by his leaders, hey, we need to do X, Y, and Z. And he's like, done, making it happen. And the guy, love it or don't love it, the guy made shit happen. And I mean,
Wasn't a lot of time for fluff.
no,
Or
and
feelings.
I personally, I like that. I would
I'm okay
rather
with
have
that
that
too.
because then I know exactly where we are. I know exactly where I need to go. And I know exactly what's happening. There's not
Yes.
a question of like, well, what did he mean? Was he really upset
Yeah.
about that or not upset about that? Was that the right thing or the wrong thing? You know exactly if it was the right thing or the
I
wrong
knew
thing.
exactly where I stood with Dave Castro on a daily basis when I was in front of him. And then when I wasn't, I was
Yeah.
like, I have no clue. I don't know if he likes me. I don't know if he hates me. I don't know if I'm fired. I don't know if I'm coming back. But you're right, because you and I are the same in this category. And I don't know if it's because we're a bit old school, but like I do not want to sift through the bullshit. Either tell me what to do and I'll do it. Don't give me this like workaround. Well, maybe so. Like David, be like, do this. And then I like the other way where if I tell you what to do it. Or I shouldn't have to tell you what to do and hold your hand for you to do this job.
Right. Right.
And if you look at the, this is kind of just the way Dave operated behind the scenes. There was that part of it, but then there's a big part that nobody really saw. Like you see the militant style dictatorship of Dave Castro, and as far in dictatorship, I mean dictating things, not like he is a dictator.
Right. Right.
Delegating things. We'll say that's a better word. His Instagram persona, which is it's just a cartoon character. Like Dave on Instagram is just it's like WWE. Like he's just playing a character on Instagram, but underneath that, like, if you got to get behind the curtain, which, you and I had a few opportunities to do that, and I could probably name every single one where I was like, "Oh, wow." The amount of care and consideration that Dave had for the team around him, the people that supported the games, right? They weren't the staff members, the affiliates. Dave was a director of the CrossFit Games. Like, that was his title, I guess, over the last couple of years. But when he founded the games in 2007 with Greg Glassman, like, Dave visits affiliates randomly. Like, Dave ran the training seminar for over a decade, hand in hand with Nicole Christensen, or sorry, Nicole Carroll.
Yeah.
Right? Like, like, he did that. He also ran the games. Like, like, Dave's roots through this company, through the community, through the affiliates, through the games are so deep, and the way that he cares about that. Like, he doesn't have to randomly show up to seminars and watch people train. He doesn't have to randomly drop into affiliates and just see how everybody's doing. Like, that wasn't part of the job description. He didn't get paid for that. But it meant so much to him, and he was so silent about it. Right? He dropped into Dallas, I think, a month ago, and I only knew it because he posted a picture of a different gym, and I was like, "You're in Dallas?" He goes, "Not anymore." I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, "You wanna call me? You didn't wanna drop in my gym?" And he goes, "You get enough attention." I was like, "Well, that's fair." But, you know, eh, there's just not enough time to talk about the good, you know? And
Well,
nobody wants to talk about all the funny or the fuzzy, warm feelings. Everybody wants to be angry.
I think because everyone's trying, especially now, it's like they're searching to try to find some reason why it happened. Like, what did
Oh, I
he
I
F
meant angry at Dave while he was being
Oh,
Dave
while he was in it.
Castro.
Oh, I
Yeah.
I think that I think that it was because he was so, like, how dare anyone, especially in the society nowadays, how dare anybody be so, like, matter of fact, like, "It's this way. Like, you need to listen to me." And that was just not his thing. And I will say this, I mean, the fact that if you look at the core OG of the CrossFit people, and I'm talking everyone from Glassman to Nicole to Boz to Dave to, like,
Chuck,
that group that was,
Dustin,
yeah, all like that
Tony.
that Tony, all of those guys, and that group, what made them and what made CrossFit so amazing was they just said, "Hey, look, it's dirty, but it's awesome." And everybody wants to be part of something that is awesome like that. Nobody wants to be part of something that is, like, weak and saucy, and I mean, maybe nowadays, I don't really know. But I think that's why no one in the beginning thought he was polarizing. It
Well,
was
no, because they
as
were
it got later.
all yeah, and,
And he has that, the pushback about who does Dave think he I think because of that. Because they didn't do that when the company was small. They didn't do that when it was like, "Hey, Greg, I have a place we can do this competition thing at. Hey,
mhm,
bring it over here to my parents' house.
yeah,
Like, that'll be cool."
ranch.
You know? I and I really I I for me, as a not as a I can text Dave, and I think that that's awesome that I have that relationship with him, that I could do that.
Mhm,
I would never, if I pull all that stuff away and I'm just affiliate guy,
yeah,
I still am like, Well, wait a minute. Wh-
mhm,
you're taking like, you're ripping the roots of what made CrossFit so awesome out. Like, I'm confused.
yeah,
Like, I'm that's the part that trips me out. I mean, on the personal level, for sure.
yeah,
Just because I don't like, I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. But on a company level, like, I mean, one of the things that drew me to CrossFit was, it was like, "Oh, we're just getting down and dirty." It's not this
yeah,
flash and dash. It's not the Globo Gym, look how shiny it is, and, "Hey, you know, we're gonna line everything with orange light bulbs so that we can make everyone train into some orange light weird crap thing." Like,
What are you
it
talking
was
about?
like, I don't
I
know
don't
what you're
get this
talking about.
reference.
It's a we'll call it the red hypothesis. It but I mean, what made it so
Tangerine
great was
hypothesis.
it just was like, "Oh, man, here we go, Rocky," and that he was part of the grit of that. He was what part of what made that be what it was, and I just don't know what will happen. Will CrossFit continue? Totally. Will the games continue? I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But man, you just rip the roots right out of the ground.
Yeah, and, you know, I
Non-negative roots, non-negative roots.
I mean, listen, whatever roots you ripped out, you cannot replant and replace. So, and we'll get to that towards the end as far as what the future looks like, for CrossFit in the games, and it's all tied together, like, because Dave permeated all of that,
Yeah.
and I would like to get kind of your personal side with Dave. I'll kind of explain kind of my relationship with Dave and what that means to me on a more personal level here in a second. But we say a lot of these great things about him. It's You still have to say is like, listen, just like all of us. Like, I am not perfect, you are not perfect, nobody is perfect. We all screw up, we all make mistakes, we've all said things we didn't mean or we did and we shouldn't have said those things. But like Dave's done a lot of things that aren't, I would say, kosher with anybody. He's been brash, he's been unapologetic, he's been reactive to the things that some people say about him, especially on the athlete side or outside, noise. Like he's never done anything the right way all the time either. Like, and he's done it his own way. And the one thing I will say is like whether he's been good, he's been bad, you hated him, you loved him, you didn't like the way he handled certain things, or you do, he's been all of that. He's been all of that. I've pissed him off multiple times. Like, like I've been in the doghouse with Dave a few times, and it was granted for the way I reacted to certain things. And like Dave has done the same thing. Like the way he's handled situations haven't been great, and the other way he's handled situations, like that's one of the more endearing qualities that he does possess in CrossFit and the CrossFit Games. So I think it's fair to say is like, listen, he's had his fair share of the good and the bad for the last 15 years if you just look at the CrossFit Games by themselves. But um I didn't want it to just be like, oh, Dave, Dave, Dave. It's like, listen, oh, what's up, Ryan? Fun story about Ryan Harper. He helped me build the gym when I first started.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. What's up, dude? And so about Dave itself, right? When I remember texting you when it all came out, like I was about to go to sleep, and Brian Friend messaged me. You have he's like, you cannot go to bed right now. I'm like, A, how do you know I'm going to bed? B, okay. And I was like, well. And then he sent me a screenshot of something. And I was like, what the F? Like, has to be a joke. And against my better judgment, I texted Dave. I was like, is this a joke? He goes, no, it is not. And then I immediately, I don't know the feeling. Like there's like the feeling like you're getting pulled over by the police. You know that feeling? Like, now this has never happened to me, but I can only imagine the feeling is like I've had a few beers and I'm getting pulled over by like this like gut wrenching. I
Like a
can't
sinking feeling,
explain.
like someone, like,
Yeah.
punching you in the stomach. You're like, "Whoa."
Well, I guess the term is like gutted, and people use that a lot, just like they use extreme or epic, but like legitimately gutted. Like somebody had ripped my guts out, and I was like holding them in my hands. I'm like, I don't know how to process this, and honestly, I still don't because I've been rambling with you for the last 20 minutes. But it's just and people have, like I said, we're not going to touch too much on the what's and the whys because we don't know any of that. But like the way it was handled, when it was done, how abrupt that is, and yet to have any explanation, like I think that's where a lot of people are getting lost in their feelings about what's going on because we don't know what's going on. And the reason why we wanted to jump on here is we didn't want to speculate. We just wanted to talk. And we wanted to share our relationship with Dave, our experience with Dave, what we feel like Dave has meant to CrossFit, the CrossFit Games, and what the future may hold. And so with that, Bill, what was really your you know, like Dave was the centerpiece of when I started CrossFit from from day one. What was your first encounter experience with Dave, and how has that relationship grown over the last few years, or like a few years, that 12, 13 years?
Yeah, a lot of years. My first time with Dave, or like really kind of like interaction with Dave, I guess would have been at the 2010 games. Tony Budding brought me in as one of the commentators, and I had seen Dave on the silly little videos that HQ did back in the day. Um, but all I knew was that this guy carried himself. I mean, I wouldn't look at Dave and be like, dude, that guy's a giant man.
No,
No, I mean, not at all.
he's just a dude.
He's just a very average sized guy, you know. He doesn't I mean, he programs these workouts that crush the fittest people on the planet that he could never do. And but the way he held himself was like, man, he's like this monster. So it took me a while
His
to
aura,
I didn't really
I know
know.
his
Oh,
aura.
totally. It was massive. Yeah, it was massive. His persona was giant. And I had no idea what his background was or anything like that. I mean, you hear about, oh, this guy's SEAL, that guy's military, whatever, but like it didn't really fit. Until I realized that he was a SEAL guy, and then I'd start watching how he was, and I was, in fire at the time, so I kind of was like, oh, okay, let me look at him through that perspective,
Mhm.
and that's when I started understanding, at least on my end, where I was like, okay, I get it now, because I had captains that I saw the same way, that were smaller people than me, but the way they carry themselves, it's like, dude, that guy's like 7.5 feet tall, and actually he's only like 5'8", and
Yeah.
I think that's what Dave had. So my first encounters with him was that. It was like, oh man, like I don't want to mess this up with this guy at all. And like and it was there was a like a level of honor, a level of almost kind of like you don't want to disappoint your dad, even though I didn't have any real relationship with him. But I mean, I
Yeah.
didn't I didn't want to mess it up with him. And as those years went by, and actually, you want to know what's really funny was, I think one of the before even that, when I was doing one of the first sectional events.
Don't waste a Rush moment story,
I
by the
I know
way.
I'm trying
Don't
not to do
waste one,
that,
because we're gonna do a whole episode on our
and then
top 4 moments of Dave Castro.
And that's fine, and there was a
Alright,
there was
I'm
a
just
comment. I'll save that one. No, I'm not
we
gonna
get a
save that
we
one.
get
I'm
a
gonna
bonus
use this
one.
one because
Use
this
it, we'll
was
get a
important,
bonus one.
because
Okay.
he's coming up. This is when, like, when he used to do a lot of, like, the announcing. He would announce on the floor and do that, whatever, and so he's down in Southern California, and he
Can
comes
you
over to
guys
me, and he's
imagine
like,
Dave
"Hey,
as
we
the
need to watch
MC?
this guy over here. Hey, that old guy won that first event. What happened there?" And I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
"Who is this guy?" So right away, it starts kinda calling me out, and that was the whole thing, and that feeling, that, like, fun banter. Hey, hey, I'm playing with you, but it's real, but I'm kind of giving you props, but I'm kind of knocking you down. Like, that's crew stuff. Like, that's team stuff.
Mhm.
That's public safety stuff. That's what you do. And so, like, instantly I was like, okay, this guy's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And the relationship has grown. I mean, like, he obviously has been the tip of the spear, the top of the iceberg for all of the things and the CrossFit Games stuff that we have always dealt with. And I honestly have felt totally lucky. I mean, I was never on the seminar staff. He always would say, he's like, why aren't you on it? Why aren't you on the staff? And I just didn't have time. I was doing fire at the time and all
Yeah,
these other
yeah.
things. So I could never, that was in my CrossFit sphere. That's my one regret, that I didn't get to do that. I think that would have been really fun to do. I don't know when I would have had the time to do that, but
Yeah.
that was always the thing. So I have grown to have a great relationship with him. I don't talk to him all the time or anything like that. It's fun to be able to text him every once in a while and say, "Hey, did I see your car come through town?" And he's like, either yeah or no, or
Yeah.
whatever. He'll
One-word answer or no answer at all.
totally, or no answer.
Nope, never mind.
Um,
Mm.
I have felt completely honored to be able to have the relationship with him, that I could hit him up to where he would hit me back.
Mm,
And I mean, I'm not saying that we are super tight friends or anything like that. I'm just saying that I have a lot of respect for the guy, and I feel honored that I'm able to have that relationship with him. And I don't know if that's that we have a cool relationship or he's just that kind of guy that is able to get back to it. Maybe he's got a bazillion people he's trying to hit back, so that's why I only get the no answer or whatever.
yeah,
But I mean,
yeah,
he's we love what CrossFit is, all of it. We love the competitive side, we love the affiliate side, we love the coaching side, we love the training side. And guess what, man? Like he was all of those parts.
yeah,
And so I mean, he as a person and all that he has brought to our world, I like I that's important to me. That means a lot to me. So my
mm,
relationship with him is important.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, it's like, I mean, you grew up with brothers,
Yeah.
and I grew up with brothers. Like, there were no daughters in our family, so and we
My
both grew
poor
up with,
mom.
like, strong, demanding father figures.
Yeah.
And I think with brothers, it was always like, how can we get under each other's skin, fight because we love each other that much, or we care about each other that much, or, like when we looked up to our dads, it's like the number one thing we wanted to do was to make dad proud.
Yeah.
And if you can get him to say that, good to go. Good to go for the rest of my life. And I felt that type of connection with Dave. There was some type of blend between that brotherly, fatherly relationship because, I came on the scene 2008 and didn't really know too much about Dave until the 2009 season. And then making the games, obviously, that got me a front row seat with Dave Castro and got to interact with him just like everybody, like he wouldn't remember me. But then seeing him later, like he remembered me. I was in the stands in 2011 because I couldn't make it, and he like isolated me. I was right in the front, so it's not like he saw me in the crowd. And he just asked how I was doing. Wish I would have made it that year. And I was like, yeah, well, that makes both of us. But the fact that like he remembers that, and he goes out of his way to do that, and then getting on staff, he personally recruited me to do that. You know, I got to do that for 7 years alongside with him and listen to him and Nicole Carroll speak to the red shirts in such a passionate way and to teach us and not just with words, but by example of what it means to be leaders or flag bearers for the CrossFit community with the
Mhm.
training staff. And then to see what he did with the games and to take everything that he did so seriously. Every workout ever programmed, every test
Do
at
you
every
remember
level.
all the battles between him and Tony Budding that would happen at the games about like, "Hey,"
Yes.
Tony would be like, "Hey, we need to be able to see," and he's like, "I don't give a shit about what you see.
Yeah. I
Like,
don't give
we're
a
here to have a competition." They
Yeah,
would have
and now it's
those
and
battles.
today's credit, like, he changed that as entertainment and TV and
Right.
broadcast became more important, and he would work with that. Now, beginning, it was like, "Hey, we gotta start now." He goes, "I'll start whenever the fuck I want." That's how Dave used to be, and he still has a lot of that in him, and, but, like, for me is
That's how important it was to him. That's
that's
why
how
that's why I
yeah,
brought that
like,
up.
Dave didn't care about TV cameras. He didn't
Yeah.
care about schedule. He cared about the test. And he cared about every single person that was a part of that team because Dave's a team guy. He's a 13-year plus Navy SEAL.
Yeah.
Like, he's a team guy in every aspect of the word. It's not just a metaphor. Like,
Right.
that's just who he was. And he had a lot of respect for those people that were on his team, that supported his team, that sacrificed and like all their time and energy to make the games what they were, to make CrossFit what it was, to make staff what it was, to make the training department, the affiliates, like the affiliate owners were part of his team because we took up the flag for CrossFit. We put our lives into CrossFit by being affiliate owners, and he respected that, which is why he went and visited affiliates unannounced to drop into a class to either coach it or to be in it. But he didn't broadcast that.
Right.
Right? He didn't
Yeah.
show that part. And it's because that's our interaction. And for me, like, Dave has just been a huge, I would say, anchor to CrossFit for me, whether it was being on staff, being an affiliate owner like yourself, being on broadcasting like we've been broadcasting, being an athlete at every level that we could possibly think of. And he's been there every step of the way. And I think another part of his influence beyond just our personal relationship, if you think about programming, everything that we know about programming comes from Dave Castro in the
Yeah.
sports space. And I don't care what any of these other like training camps say, these other, offset programs, like Dave Castro was the inspiration for me to fall in love with programming because of what he did at the CrossFit Game season. .com was .com. It's completely different. Dave doesn't even do that. It's like a rotation of people over the years. It's been different. But the way he approached it and the time and the seriousness of it and the meticulous and the creativity that he had, I think was the inspiration to all these other type of like online programs, not boot camps, like elite camps. Like you can all trace it back, in my opinion, to Dave Castro. And that is a huge thing to really sit back and appreciate for a second. It's like whether you like this, that, or the other, or you don't, like your opinion has been created, unbeknownst to you, from Dave Castro.
Yeah, I can like actually see the specific moments from events that either we had in the open, the regionals, or the games where the programming that I had in my affiliate was a direct relation to that. It's like, "Oh, that was good." Like, I one of the big ones that I remember was right out of the gate was when you guys had to do the Helen or the Hellish
Oh,
Helen
Super
with the
Helen.
lifting at the end. I
Yes.
was like, "Ooh, I like the fact of being tested of strength at the end of being super tired." Like, all of
Mhm.
a sudden you start thinking about like, "Okay, I like the stimulus of that." So, a lot of the things that he would do are now a lot of the things that I have woven in. I mean, granted, we're programmers, so we're artists. We all do our one thing. But if you see an artist do a particular brush stroke and you're like, "Oh, I like that,"
Yes.
you bring that into your programming. And so we have both done that. And the way you program, the way I program, a lot of the threads that will be woven through there are things that we have seen, not these other camps do, but what we saw Dave do.
Right.
Because we liked the result of that test. We liked the result of what that stimulus is gonna be. We like the result of whatever the setup is. And, I mean, you're right. I mean, the on the programming side, which here we are on the program, get with the programming.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's a direct relationship to what he has done. And granted, I mean, you can pull that back to, to where Glassman was and all that kind of stuff. But what's cool about Dave is, and this is even like for myself, is he is Navy SEAL, yes. He was also a trainer of the Navy SEALs. I mean, he was one that he trained Josh Bridges, so
Right.
you get like that sort of a elite level training scenario. I did the same thing with fire. I mean, I went from being a high school teacher to firefighter to fire captain to where I'm teaching all this, all the USAR classes and the technical stuff and all that. And then here I am coaching now. So like you get to a point where like it's not just doing stuff in the day, like it's important. And he showed how important all of those things were by how much time it took for him to test the events and how much work he put into all the creativity of let me build this to this to this and what's the whole season going to look like versus what's the Saturday of regionals going to look like. I don't know. It
Right.
depends like how that fits into the other 2 weeks of the season.
Mhm.
So I just that part, like you can't say enough. If you are a programmer in this space, I mean,
Whether
there's
whether you think it or not, like,
totally
Dave's fingerprints are all over that.
all over
It's
it.
like, "Oh, no, I took that from Comp Trainer." Like, where do you think Ben Bergeron got his inspiration from?
Yeah.
Or any of these athletes, and any of these coaches, and any of these programmers? Like, "Oh, it's my own program." Like, yes, but we got inspired by what it meant to program for the test of fitness. And it all started, and that was the thing, is like they didn't know how to do that in 2007. And we've had the opportunity to, we've been analyzing this for 2 years, and we've been a part of it for 13, and we've been watching the games in person for 10 to 11 years
Yeah.
as part of the broadcast team, as analysts behind the scenes. We've asked him why he did it. We've had podcasts of why he did it, how he did it, how he came up with the inspiration. We have got to see that firsthand. And to watching how it evolved from 3 events in 2007, a long distance trail run, the CrossFit Total, and some hopper workout, which is one of the most perfect, elegant, simplistic tests of fitness ever created, which was the CrossFit Games, right? And to what it is for last year, there was 15 different tests. And the amount of time that he's put into it each and every single year, I think needs to be appreciated, whether you like him or not.
Totally.
And the
Well,
legacy, well, and I guess that's the legacy talk that we
yeah,
wanna
no,
end our
100%. I just don't, there would have to be some very, I mean, I could think of a handful of people that are like, "He did X, Y, and Z to me specifically," and it's like, "Yeah,
Well, and
well,
that's, yes, he did.
he just called you out on it is what it is. You're just pissed that you got called out on it." Like,
Mhm.
it wasn't this, that, or the other, but, like, you're right. I mean, e whether you like him or not,
Yeah.
to not have someone that is that deep entrenched in all that we do, I mean, talk about the legacy of it. I don't think it could be filled with one person. I think
Well,
to fill it with a
that's
team would
exactly
be
what I was gonna talk about.
very, very, very difficult to do. Well, I
Yes.
mean, and mostly just because of the history. And I hear a lot, I see a lot of people saying like, well, change is inevitable and change happens.
Yeah, I get
And
that.
I mean, yeah, okay, it totally does. However, just because change for the sake of change is not always a good thing. Change is great, like, cool. That you put up that one? Nice one.
No, sorry.
Online strips.
Yeah. I'm trying to delete it, son of a bitch. Wow.
But, I think that I don't know, man. I don't know if that is something that can be done. I
Mhm.
just I don't know how you can do that. There's way too much history, way too much. I mean, there's a lot of knowledgeable people out there, and I'm not saying that you can't find a knowledgeable person to do, programming,
Yeah.
but to have somebody, I mean, at minimum, to remotely touch what he did, you would have to have a team, a massive team.
Yes, and actually, that's exactly what I wanted to talk about, because Dave's title was director of the CrossFit Games. They gave him that recently, and then became the director of sport and all this other stuff. And in 2007, Dave founded the games with Greg Glassman, and then basically took it from there. Like, Greg had checked out after about 2008, 2009, completely checked out, and focused on other things that he did that made CrossFit what it is today until about 2019. But Dave evolved the test with sounding boards with other people, right? It wasn't just Dave, but it was, Dave in particular. And as he evolved the test, he just never gave certain things away. Like, he was part of the scheduling of the CrossFit Games. He was part of getting the judges involved. Then he'd bring people in, the Justin Bergs and the Tony Buddings and the Adrian Bosmans and the Chuck Carswells and the Dave Eubanks, like the Curtis Bowlers and the Stefan Rochers, like, and then it would grow and grow and grow, but he still had his hands in all that.
Yeah.
Like, and then it became more delegation. But like, as the tests grew, like, he didn't isolate any of his reaches into any pot or any fire less than he did in 2007. And the amount of things that Dave did at the CrossFit Games and CrossFit for the affiliates and the training staff and the training department are so massive and is so entrenched that you're right. You're not going to be able to replace it with one person. I see posts like, "Oh, I wonder who's going to fill his shoes." Like, It's no one. Put the shoes away. Like,
Right.
don't do that to Dave, like that he's easily replaceable. He's irreplaceable. Dave Castro is irreplaceable. Now that doesn't mean it can't move forward without him. I'm not saying that. But there's not going to be another one. The 15 years of Dave Castro and the CrossFit Games and CrossFit and training staff, it's over. And we got to look at what the next, I would say, era is going to be. Does that make sense? And you're right. Justin Berg has now, I guess, been given Dave's title as the director of sport. I believe it's what we've been told. But it's not just like, okay, well, like, what's Justin going to do? Is he going to program? Like, there's all these questions where we're not going to speculate on who's going to do what. But you're right. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to take a committee of people to do what Dave did.
I mean, I don't know if it was like job creation issue, and that's what they want to do. They wanted to add 20 jobs to the CrossFit HQ staff because
Right.
that's about what it'll take. Like his hands were in everything,
Right.
everything. I mean, the only thing that he didn't really have his hands on was, you know, when Greg went deep into like the nutrition, we're trying to battle, you know, big, you know, Coke and big sugar and all that kind of stuff. I mean, everything else Dave had his hands on.
Mhm.
Certificates, training, seminars, training all the. I mean, I'd say this when you guys would do your seminar staff training summits like down in San Diego and
Oh,
stuff like that.
man.
Dude, you talk about FOMO. Oh, I was so I'm like, I
Some of
wish I
my
was with those guys.
greatest memories in CrossFit come from those.
Dude, I'm so jealous. So jealous. I mean, like that the training stuff, the way he would go, like there is I don't even know. I don't even know how many people it would take. It would take a lot. And I'm not talking like 4. I'm talking like 20
Yeah.
to do all the things that he did.
Yeah. And, you know, we talked about our personal relationship with him, the legacy that he's gonna leave, and I feel like we can't really paint that picture for Dave until until we get a little bit more removed from it, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. You know, it's like I can tell you what he did, I can tell you how much it meant to him, I can tell you how much it meant to me, and yourself and everybody else, and like we said, 1,000 different people have 1,000 different experiences with him,
Well,
from
I
the
was
positive to the negative.
well, I will say this, you know, if it was the open, we would be seeing a lot of who does this guy think he is? What's happening here? Blah blah blah. Whereas now, dude, I'll tell you what, I have seen nothing but a massive outpour of, "Hey, man, we're sorry to see you go."
Well, it's
From
because
coaches,
people
from athletes,
love to
from
hate him.
people.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Well,
It's
hate I put
crazy.
hate, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I mean, I that's what's amazing. Like, thank God he's off you know, doing that
that
hunting, that
sniper,
sharpshooting
sniper
thing this
competition.
weekend. Yeah. Um, but like it's almost like he died in action. Like the outpour that's happening is like he died in action. It's
That is a
so
lot of reaction to
bizarre,
people.
man. It's
I know.
crazy.
I mean,
It's crazy.
yeah, I got to, I'm not gonna peek behind the curtain too much, but I got the text with Dave the night it was happening, and I called him the day after and spoke to him a little bit and just expressed how I felt about the situation and, you know, my gratitude. I gave him my gratitude that I had for him personally on a lot of different levels, and yeah, the people are, you know, it's like, are we mourning the death of Dave Castro? Is like, no, it's just like
But that's what it looks like. Like
that's what it looks like, and
it's that
honestly, that's almost
emotional
what
though.
it feels like to a lot of
100%.
people in different ways. And look, some people are like good riddance, um, and I get that. I get the dislike for Dave Castro, and even those that knew Dave, people didn't like him or the way he handled things or you know his approach to certain things. And I'm not saying only the people that knew Dave loved Dave or knew how great he was. Like there's people that were behind the scenes. They're like, fuck Dave. Like there are those people too, you know? And,
Hey, man, you
It
can't be liked by everybody.
no, and I think the people that try to do that are so fake to begin with, and that's
Totally.
one thing Dave was not. Like, Dave was super genuine, went, like, at all times, and he had his faults just like we all did, but, we look back and, now let's look forward. I as we said earlier, it's gonna take like, the big question is, like, who's gonna program the games? Like, I don't think it's gonna be one person. It can't be. I don't think people understand how hard that job is to do. While, oh, by the way, running the effing games. Like, you're gonna need someone who's the director of the CrossFit Games, the director of sport. Then I think you're gonna need this. You're gonna need like a committee of people that are not too many, right? You don't want like too many cooks in the kitchen or
Dude,
with
I'm
the
telling you I think what made it work so well. I mean, what was cool was like the last year, I think they had all the videos that Boz was putting out where they were showing the testing of the events, kind of how the genesis of, and
yes.
it was always Dave at the front with the
Mhm.
crew sitting in the chairs, and they're having that banter back and forth of what it wants to look like. So Dave is here as the master artist, and you get this other influx of people. But the thing is that what still made that work was it was still an idea of what the test is going to be. So you still have to have one person leading that mission. Everybody's doing the mission,
Mhm.
and may have a couple of, hey, this will work better. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? But you still have to have a driving force, a tip of the spear that's running that. And man, I tell you, I love programming. Um, if for some reason they said, okay, we're gonna appoint one person to be that programmer, dude, like you're almost in a lose situation.
It's like that's the dream job for any programmer,
Yeah,
and it would be one
nobody
of
would
those.
want right now.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, nobody wants to be Sean and Tommy, they did a podcast on this, if you guys are just jumping on, and they had a great perspective in a point of view of Dave and what the future looks like, and Sean had mentioned this, is like, nobody wants to be the next guy after the guy.
No,
That's just not that's just not where you wanna be, and if, like, okay, say dream scenario for both of us, like Chase and Bill. We want you guys to program for the CrossFit Games. I'd be like, fuck yeah. And then
hell yeah.
immediately I'll be like, oh
Oh no.
no. Like, oh no.
Totally.
Oh no. Like, it'd be like one of those things like we spent your whole life working for. And it's one of those jobs, like as soon as you get it, you're like, I don't know if I want this.
Well, yeah,
Like,
your whole
I
life,
don't
and
want
you're
this
like, so many
responsibility. I
years
don't
I've been doing all this stuff, and now you have the entire world is gonna critique what you just did.
that's a great thing that you just said. And I think people need to take a step back for a second and appreciate that. Is that the entire world of CrossFit weighed on the shoulders of Dave Castro and how he programmed.
Yeah. Dude, not the entire world of CrossFit, the entire world. Every other fitness program out there is constantly looking at what CrossFit does and what the games does and what we do programming wise. Where do you think all of these places came from? All the F45 and all of these, all those are all their attempts of biting off what this is. So it isn't just the CrossFit world is watching. I mean, like we definitely do for sure. We'll all be watching whoever's up next to be like, okay, did you pass the test or not?
Dude, I'll be the most judgiest, petty bitch of whoever like, you thought I was judgy at the quarterfinals last year? Like,
Oh yeah. Well,
wait
of
for the
course we are
quarterfinals
gonna
this
do it
year. Yeah.
300 GHDs. It's that guy that's programming. Duh.
Oh, and it's so funny because it's so unfair. But, like, think about that for a second. Think about an entire world judging you for almost like your artwork. Like,
No,
when people
definitely your
and
artwork.
we had this conversation yesterday with, Otto and James Hobart, because we talked about them with cat programming, which we'll
Yeah.
release later. We just wanted to do this one, today. And they got so much feedback, personal feedback on their programming that they've never had before. Like, if anyone walks into my gym and like, this workout's stupid, I'm like, well, you don't know what you're talking about. So just shut up and do it. Like, that doesn't bother me. But when you put it out to the masses and the masses will let you know what they think about it, right or wrong, ignorant or informed. And he shouldered that for 15 years.
Dude, okay, so our affiliates, 150 people, that's all we have to deal with. The CAP program, they had their program out for 8 months or whatever for free. 4,000 of affiliate owners and people looking at that and giving them their feedback. 4,000.
Mm-hmm.
You do the programming for the open, you have upwards anywhere between 250,000 to 400,000 people doing your thing and saying, okay, that was cool, or you suck and you
Yeah.
don't know what the hell you're doing.
You got two dudes on a podcast.
400,000 people, man.
Annually.
Ah.
Annually. And he shouldered that. And I think that's one of the things that is going to be tough because Dave like relished that. It's like, I want the hate. I want the criticism. I'll take that.
Hey, you need to have a soldier with some tough ass skin who's been in some
And I'll-
ugly places that can handle that. And I just
I'll
don't know if
push
you can
back
find that.
and I'll stir
Not
it up
afraid.
and I'll say
Yep.
some things I probably shouldn't say. I'll ruffle some feathers that may never get mended. I'll piss off some athletes. I'll piss off some board members. And I don't care. And I'm focused on the next thing. Like, what you say doesn't have an effect on me. Now, sometimes it did. Sometimes it did. And he reacted in ways he probably shouldn't have publicly in the position that he was in. But he's a freaking human being.
Right.
And I think that's the other part that people need to remember. Like, Dave Castro is not a cartoon character. Like, the man, Dave Castro, just lost his dream job. It was taken away from him. And I think everybody, whether you love him or hate him, I think you got to sit back and look at him as a human being. That Dave Castro, who is also a husband and a father, by the way, if nobody knows that.
Which is crazy because that is never
Nobody
out.
knows that.
No one knows that.
Another level of respect. Like, okay, so the thing they say about like Navy SEALs that they're silent professionals, like Dave lives that, and he still does out of the team. He's been out of the team since 2010. But this man just lost his dream job, like the thing that he loved doing the most. And he poured his heart and his soul into every single day. And he let the people know who supported that vision, who gave their own sacrifices with family, friend, and time to support his vision, his dream for CrossFit. It wasn't for himself. As much as people think that Dave thought it was about Dave, it was not. Dave knows that CrossFit is bigger than one person, right? When Greg left or we had to move on from Greg, all we said when Greg was doing his thing is it's not about him. Dave will say the same thing about CrossFit as far as his persona, and he will say the same thing about the games, even though he does things that does make it appear that way. And, I just want people to sit back, put your personal opinions of him aside, whether you know him or you don't. With most of you don't. And I don't even know Dave that well. I'm not saying we're besties. We're not.
Yeah.
But I think we all just can sit back and appreciate what he's done for the games for the last 15 years, what he's done for CrossFit for the last, 20 plus years. And understand that, a human being just was stripped of everything that he hold dear overnight. And that sucks.
I just hope. I mean, I obviously that is heart wrenching on that aspect. I mean, on a personal level, I hope that doesn't just kill what I love. I mean, I got out of fire. I retired early from fire just to do my CrossFit stuff, my affiliate and my commentating and my coaching and all that kind of stuff. So this is my world too. And I'm hoping that because he's not in it anymore, that doesn't affect, because of someone else's opinion about whatever he does or doesn't fit. That's a trip, man.
Good, Savon. You shouldn't.
Nope.
You'll be the white knight.
Hey, I want to say, Sevon, that was a great podcast, by the way. If you guys haven't heard it, that was the first thing that went out. And I actually hit up Chase. I'm like, dude, what's happening? He's like, I'm listening to Sevon's podcast. And I'm like,
Dude,
I'm on it.
I got
I
no
was on it
sleep.
right away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was up listening to that. I was like, fuck. Now I'm not like it looks like I'm gonna be up until this is over.
Yeah. I don't like the idea of a neutered CrossFit. I don't like that.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think the big thing now for people here's the deal. If you really truly loved CrossFit, the CrossFit games, the spirit of CrossFit, what it meant to be a OG, like the gritty part of CrossFit, then stop fucking posting that you quit. Because Dave wouldn't fucking do that.
Mm-mm.
When the shit went down with Greg, Dave pushed forward. Dave took the banner and ran up the mountaintop in front of a fucking firing squad for all of us. So you can be pissed off. And I'm not saying you have to agree with it because I don't. But people like, I'm going to boycott the open and all this other stuff is like, listen, I get that you're frustrated and you're pissed off. But I tell you what, if they use Dave's workouts, you better fucking sign up because it's the last competition you'll ever get to do that Dave programmed for. And that means something. So if you really want to honor Dave or back him up, or if you hate him or whatever, but like if they're going to use his workouts that he just spent months on preparing for all of you, then you better freaking sign up because it's the last one you're going to get. So I say,
totally
do it for Dave because you're not going to make a difference by quitting.
Well, and the thing is, like, Dave's a soldier. When all the stuff that was going down with Greg, Dave didn't back out. Dave didn't back out. Dave stood there with his army, doing what he did. He got put up into the top spot, and then he programmed, and then he moved out of the top spot, and then he started doing all the, he's doing all of his other things he was doing. He never backed out of the situation just because things got ugly or things were, getting effed up or whatever it was. And I think that's something that if, for those people that support Dave, you got to support Dave, which is, hashtag do it for Dave.
That's
Totally,
where I was
Kristen.
going. Thank you, Kristen.
Yeah. That's huge, man. Sevon, stirring that pot, my friend.
Earth punches. I don't know. The Rogue Iron games sound pretty good to me. But and that's where I'm at. Am I upset? To wrap things up here, we didn't want to go much more than an hour. Am I upset about how things went down? Absolutely. Do I think they could have done a better job in the way they did it? Absolutely. Am I going to quit CrossFit because of it? Absolutely not. Because in the position that you and I are in, and I don't want to speak for you, and I'll let you, give your final thoughts too, is like, I am going to do the job that Dave gave me and the opportunity that was set forth in front of me because of what he did and the way he did it, just like he would if he was still here. And I'm not going to back down. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to support the community. I'm going to support CrossFit like I always have throughout the 13 years that I've been doing it. And no, the Greg stuff, the selling of the company threats back in like 2010. What was that stupid company name that his wife was trying to sell?
Oh yeah.
Anthos or whatever. Like the unbuyable attitude, the smoky like cheap crack, the pukey the clown, and going forward is, I will do it for Dave. And I'll support CrossFit and I'll support the games and I'll do everything that I've ever done since I stepped foot in this community, just like I always have. And we'll see what happens moving forward. I'm not going to judge what happened until things actually happen and we get some clarity on whatever. I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to bitch. I'm going to do my job in the way that I know Dave would do it, and he would want us to.
Totally.
That's how I feel.
Yeah. I'm the same way. It's if I see Dave as, and this is actually using Sevon's words out of this, is the tip of the spear for our grit and our toughness with CrossFit. Guess what, man? I've been around this thing a long time, and I don't plan on being not OG, gritty, whatever. So the only way I can do my part is to be exactly how I have been and how Dave has been, and keep doing what we do, which is we teach people to be healthier, to live better lives through this methodology known as CrossFit, using the workouts and the programs and the methodologies brought forth by Greg, pulled together by Dave, kicked out by Dave, tested by Dave, and we've brought it down into our affiliates. And I'm going to do the same exact thing. And we're going to coach people that way. We're going to train people that way, and we're going to get people to have better lives because of that. And you're right, Dave would not want us to quit because of some stupid thing that happens where he gets knocked out of the out of the position that he's in for whatever the reason is.
Yeah.
And we'll find out what that is eventually. I hope it comes out, something comes out. That would bum me out. But as always, like my CrossFit here, CrossFit Inferno, is the CrossFit that I grew up with. And that's the way we've been, and it's always going to be that way.
I got 2 hashtags for you. I might get in trouble for the second one.
But they're not bad. I mean,
and that's where I wanted to be.
I tell you what, dude,
really where I wanted to end it down is like, because all the complaints like, oh, CrossFit's getting so corporate and all this other stuff. Like, listen, I understand, like, things change. This thing has been around for a long freaking time. The game site or the .com went up in what, 2001? It's been 20 years.
Yeah. February 2002.
15 years of the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
A lot of shit has changed in the world in just the last 5 years, let alone 20. So does it surprise me that this is starting to happen here? Maybe. Do I want it to happen? Do I want things to get watered down and softened up? And no. And the only thing I can do is the way I've always done it, the way I truly believe it needs to be done. And the fact that Dave is not here anymore doesn't change that. In fact, Dave is the one that pioneered that. And I know Dave would want us to keep doing it. So stop with the I quit, stop with the hate on CrossFit. Like, you can disagree, but in my opinion, if you really want to have an impact, then you stay in this, you fight for it for as long as you can. And then we see what happens.
Yep.
We see what happens.
Stay in the fight, dudes.
Yeah.
Do that. Stay in there.
So we'll see. You know, Dave, I know you're not listening, but I appreciate everything you did.
Oh, stop, Sevon, stop. I don't use those things.
I'm not putting that one up on the screen. Well, listen, guys, thanks for joining us on this episode. Again, we just wanted to come on and talk about Dave and what happened, and how we see it, how we saw Dave, how our relationships worked, and what we're looking for in the future. So we'll let things take place as they take place. Hopefully we know more as things evolve, and we'll go from there. We'll make educated decisions. We'll respond and not react. But
you got your back, Dave.
We got your back, Dave. We got your back. Hashtag do it for Dave. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys next time. Have a great weekend.
Ya.